and welcome to the fifth episode of season 2 of a live chat session by Outdoor Wilderness and Learning, OWL in short. Our topic for the day is leadership and healthy environment at work. The interaction between working environment and leadership behavior, planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling, these are classical roles of managers in all industry at all levels of the organizational hierarchy. Leaders may or may not be managers, but one thing that sets leaders apart is that they create and foster followers. Managers may have subordinates, but leaders have willing followers. Without followers, one simply is not a leader, isn't it? What then makes a healthy leader? How does he or she create successful, sustainable, healthy working environments? What is the correlation of emotional well-being with a healthy workplace? We'll talk about this and much more in today's chat with Mrs Pragati Sureka. Pragati Sureka is a seasoned BSP licensed clinical psychologist with more than 15 years experience in this field. She's the author of 2 books on mental health called Musings, An Insight into Me, and Hope, Stories for a Healthy Mind. She has, to her credit, various diplomas like Diploma in Counseling and Psychotherapy, Occupational Health Psychology, Cognitive Behavior Therapy for Depression and Anxiety. She also has a professional credentials from Harvard Medical School and University of Cambridge. Apart from a private practice, she's presently working as a faculty, corporate trainer, and psychological counselor at Cornash. She's the visiting pain psychologist at a leading government hospital in Kolkata. She has conducted many workshops on personality development, self-awareness, CBT for anxiety, positive body image, self-esteem, and whole person potential at various platforms. In keeping with the tradition of her ongoing quest for knowledge, she's now pursuing a program in women leadership from IIM Kolkata. Her ongoing PhD doctoral thesis on emotional well-being is emerging as a unique multidisciplinary research piece. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor and privilege to welcome my good friend, Pragati Sureka, on our OWL chat today.
Thank you so much, Alifiya. I'm really excited to be here at OWL, and I look forward to an invigorating session today.
Wonderful. So once again, a very good evening and welcome to our show, Pragati, and thank you for taking time out from your busy schedule to talk to us today.
Absolutely. The reason I really like the fact that in these difficult times, especially the pandemic, you are touching on such a pertinent issue of emotional well-being. Because while everybody keeps talking about stress and how mentally they are feeling tired, very rarely do people have a solution-focused orientation. So today what I hope is we talk about how can we actually manage the problem at hand rather than talking about how we are languishing or how life is a challenge. My take is, it's okay. We wake up in the morning, you have bad breath, you brush your teeth, right? So when you brush your teeth, you are able to let go of the bad breath. So in the same way, if you're stressed out at work or at home, the best way to deal with it is cater to your own emotional well-being.
Wonderful. So Pragati, your journey is from a small town, Rourkela, to a rural patriarchal Bihar and then to Kolkata, spanning 3 states. And it does not end there. From being a science student, but landed up graduating in commerce and then going on to do masters in psychology, which is traditionally an art stream, and now pursuing a PhD in emotional well-being. It's a roller coaster ride of sorts, isn't it? Tell us how you ended up doing what you're doing now.
That's a very interesting facet of my life you've brought forward, Alifiya, and I would love to talk about it. A lot of times in India, we always talk about the problem at hand, but we never look at it from a very growth perspective. The other day, I was listening to Professor Raj Srivastav, the ex-dean of ISB, and he was giving his nuggets of wisdom, which I realized is so pertinent. He said, if you love what you do, you are never going to be stressed out. And at the same time, if you have a problem, which problem is worth solving is what you need to be focused at. So what I realized in my unique journey, when I was living in rural Orissa, I was very excited. Rourkela and the surrounding areas has a lot of industries. the steel plant is there. There are lots of cement plants and everything. So what I saw amidst nature also, because of mining, because of industries, there was a lot of growth. So my early childhood years were, again an amalgamation of all the facets that come together. So where I would be climbing the jamun tree, sitting with my book and reading, and at the same time, sometimes on Sundays, I had a habit of going to the cement plant with my father and seeing, how clinker and slag and in which proportion it was mixed. So I actually when I look back, I realize that patriarchy in its traditional sense has never existed for me. It's been all around.
Right.
But when you know how to manage it, it's not so bad. So when I got married at 20, my focus was, okay, what can I do here? When I'm in Bihar, I would look around. Can I teach some children, as being part of an industrial family? How can I give back to society? How can I contribute to work at home? So I would listen in on discussions. I would take part on, there was a new plant which was coming up. So I started hearing. So my quest for knowledge is the one thing which has helped me navigate whatever chapter of life I have been in. I've not been that constricted, and for that I have to thank my mother, who spoke to us about Rousseau, Arthur Haley when we were growing up. She said,
Wow.
if you go live in a hotel, why don't you read Hotel? So you will know what goes behind the scenes. And
That's
on my own accord, I read a lot of Ayn Rand. So that gave me a lot of power from within. So I personally, I think why my journey through various ups and downs, a roller coaster, like you say, has been exciting is because I'm passionate about learning and growth. And because of that, wherever I have been, whether it's traversing states or, going abroad to do a course, it's all just seamlessly come together like beads in a necklace.
Lovely. So you did mention about books. So now let me talk to you about the book you authored, Hope Stories for the Healthy Mind. There's a book that you've written,
Absolutely,
two books.
yes.
Yeah? It's essentially for children. And this book really tugs at my heartstrings. What made you write these short stories about, I think it's about Ryan, Shoma, and Kabir? Yeah.
Absolutely. So, as we were discussing, I've been working as a therapist for the last 15 years. Like you said, when I studied, I started off as a science student, and my dream was to go to an IIT. Now, coming from a business background, my dad was like, engineer पढ़ के क्या करोगी? तुम कैसे manage करोगी? बच्चे कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है. So then came commerce, because it was just easier. It was the college next door, and even after marriage, I could go attend and give my classes. And psychology was the love of my life, which came because of an article in Graffiti after both the children were born. And I realized human mind and interactions intrigued me. So after the children were born, I got back to studying, I got back to training, and I realized psychology helped me understand myself, raise my children better, and as well as have a professional practice. So in all this, about 10 years went by, the decade flew by. And as I was seeing more and more parents and children in my therapeutic practice, I realized that we don't have the resources where we know what to do. Like today, if I'm sweaty after a day out in the gym or walking, I know I need to shower and I'll feel better. But here, if my child is throwing tantrums, I as a parent do not know what to do, because not everybody wants to read psychology books. Not everybody wants to, go to a therapist. So I realized that if people had an easy go-to resource, where if there was any mental health issue or, poor performance at work, it would be so much easier for them. Because one thing I feel is two things need to come with a manual. One is parenting and one is marriage. And for two things for which we don't have a manual. So in relationships, in dealing with children, if there is a bit of easy guidance available in story form, it will really benefit all of us to experience emotional well-being. Because we at the end of the day are social beings, we don't thrive in isolation. And we really want the best for our children too. But unfortunately, we tend to feel so bogged down. Sometimes, like if we take Ryan's story, here's this young boy whose performance at school is dipping. He's all of 8. And the teacher sees him wool gathering, and then she asks him, what is happening, Ryan? So he said, I think there is something wrong with me because my parents are fighting in the evening. Now the teacher was very emotionally intelligent, and she realized that, when adults they live in an adult world which very rarely is about the child, especially if they are arguing amongst themselves. So she calls the parents, and the parents realize that there was a third issue that they were very worried about, something at work and some other family challenges that were going on. But when they realized that their bickering was having an impact on Ryan, the mother gave him a cuddle, the father patted his back, and Ryan starts feeling a little better. So, with these simple tips about how we need healthy environment at home for children to perform well, with that thought process, Ryan's story came by. Now, if I look at Kabir, if you see in the pandemic, anyone with a mental health illness, if you see their illness has got exacerbated, it's increased manifold, and symptomatically people are finding all challenges very difficult to deal with, whether it's alcoholism, whether it's depression or anxiety. The young teenagers who Google, and I remember the other day I got a call from a child, and she was like, "Ma'am, I have an anxiety disorder and I think I'm having a panic attack and I need to see you." Very sweetly, I told her child, "Thank you for calling and I'm there, but understand you're not having a panic attack, because if you were, you would be in the ER right now. You wouldn't remember to call me." She said, "Oh, is that so? I'm feeling so much better." So sometimes when you Google, which all of us do, you can't symptomatically diagnose yourself. So
True.
Ryan's story is, Kabir's story is about what to do when there is a clinical diagnosis by a psychiatrist. Then how do family members support their father or their mother or a grandparent? And when you see certain mood swings, how do you not take it personally? So this is what, through these three stories, I have begun my journey to educate everybody on what are those little things you can do to take care of your emotional health and your emotional well-being, and carry it forward, to your work, to the world at large.
I think it's a very interesting book because there's certain things that you mentioned over there. I think it probably happens in almost all the households, because I could relate to my household and I thought, okay, my God, this is so much happening in my house. So I think that was a brilliantly put book, and I would request others to please read it if they can chance upon that book. Now, let me talk about your other book, Musings, an Insight into Me. It's a collection of poems that you have written.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, one of them in particular spoke to me at various levels. And I'm going to read it out, if I may. It's called Army of Ducks. And I'm going to read this out. What have you come to the shore for? Is it to talk to man, the one who throws filth in the lake? Are you going to give him a piece of your mind? Or would you rather placate him? Appeasing never worked for anyone. Let's see if it works for you. I don't know, even as I read it out right now, it's talking to me at so many levels. If you could share your view and thoughts through the lens of a psychologist, it'll be lovely. Just let us know. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I'm like I shared with you, before we reach out to help others, it's very important to take care of your own mental well-being and have any emotional ability resource to strengthen yourself. So, for me, I begin my day with a walk in nature where I introspect, I think of what my purpose of life is, and generally, I feel being in nature soothes me down. So I remember it was a winter morning, and Ravindra Sarovar, which is of course, a beautiful landmark in Kolkata, I saw that there were a lot of ducks on the banks of the lake, and there were people who were standing there. Some were throwing pieces of biscuits or pieces of bread or God knows what. And it struck to me when I looked at those ducks, they looked so pensive. So I actually wondered that this is such a beautiful metaphor. Have they actually come to fight, like an army? Or have they come to appease? It's all right, you can drop filth, but I'll still be nice to you. A bit of global diplomacy at work.
Okay.
What did you
No,
think when you read it, Alifiya? I would love to know your take to it.
no, because when I read it was like, I don't know. It felt it was a paradox of sorts. That am I happy that they are actually feeding the ducks because the ducks are not getting anything to eat, or am I actually angry at them for kind of destroying such a pristine piece of nature that we have in Calcutta? Because of course Calcutta does not have such amazing places. We have only a few of them, and it really aches to see that when people are destroying it. Of course, there's a wetlands, and of course, this is a lake that we have in the heart of the city. So there was a paradox. I did not know whether I should sympathize with the ducks or should I be angry with these guys. So yeah, and I'm still going through a lot of it. I do not know which side to take. So it's like a tug of war, and my emotions are like, I don't know, it's all spread across.
I'm so happy to hear that because, I always feel that if you think about something, you're going to do something about it. Now, look at the burning issue of climate change. Seattle is having a heat wave. We couldn't even imagine. So, here, what we think is where I'm sitting, what I do does not matter. Now, each one of us has to introspect. Am I helping the environment by feeding the duck, or am I destroying natural resources which are there? Until each one of us does not stop to answer that question, none of these global problems are going to go away. Whether it's climate change, whether it's damage to the environment, it's just not going to go away. So
Right.
I'm happy with your state of paradox, and do share your answer once you have an answer.
Yeah, sure, I will. And in fact, it's not going to be one answer, I'm sure. It's going to
Yes.
change over a period of time. But any which ways. Now, before we continue, viewers, please feel free to post your questions in the YouTube chat. Mrs. Sureka will be happy to take them up towards the end of this program. All right, now, Pragati, coming to the topic, leadership and healthy environment at work. What makes a healthy leader?
Now, what makes a healthy leader is someone who walks the talk, someone who leads by example. As you had mentioned at the beginning of your talk, with leaders are not managers, where there's a problem, I must find solution. Management has its own zone and its own applicability and usefulness. But a leader is someone who demonstrates integrity. Now, a lot of times you will see there are some companies which are a pleasure to work at, because they look after their employees as human beings. And yet there are other companies, if you see the sweatshops in a lot of the Southeast Asian countries, where you are just probably one of the inputs, you are not even humanized. So whether you are in cramped work quarters, whether the wages which you are paid, so they don't make a person feel good about what they are doing. So a leader is someone who loves the work that he does, and he demonstrates by example. And when people see that somebody has integrity or even the conviction to communicate effectively, if you see, like, even throughout history, whether we look at any leader, Martin Luther King, he brought about such a big change in the entire nation, and we all are impacted, single handedly, racism went down. And if you see the way America function changed. Thanks to his endeavors, Barack Obama was the first president in the black president, of USA. So an authentic leader actually communicates effectively what his vision is.
Okay, so you think communication or effective communication is a key then to be a good leader, is it?
I do think so. And in
Right.
fact, a lot of times budding your hands together also matters. Like the other day, I was interviewing this very interesting gentleman who now is an organic farmer since the last decade after having been a techie all over the globe. So he had come to India on a World Bank project, and he met an organic farmer. This lady, the kind of work that she was doing, he realized he wanted to do work which made a difference in his own life, where he felt a lot calmer, where he could touch the earth, he could decide what kind of food he was eating. So he sat down with his daily wage earners and he started farming. And he was sharing his expertise and his anecdotes. So he said the first time when I told these farmers that we are going to try farming without using chemicals, they laughed at me. They thought that I was joking, because it's not there. But he said I didn't lose heart. How they planted the papayas together, and when they tasted the fruit, they were like, wow. Today,
Okay.
all of them have been there, although attrition is very, very high there, because the government also has schemes now with which, they support people to do other kind of work, construction work and all that, which pays a lot more than being a farmhand. But because this gentleman led by example, all his people are still there with him, and life is beautiful, and it's like healthy, natural environment at work.
Lovely. I think this is a perfect segue to my next question, which is like the best companies to work with. That's the list most people check when they apply for a job, right? In fact,
Yes,
it's a kind of a gold standard. How
yes.
much do you think a healthy working environment of an organization, a healthy work environment of an organization attributes to a company being on that list?
very, very crucial. I think
Okay.
at least 80% people would. Again, these are something which, if you see, again, I will quote Professor Raj Srivastav, whom I was hearing the other day. He said, what are people actually doing? That is what is important. While hardcore data gives us a scientific basis to make any kind of predictions, but what are people actually doing? That is what is the true mark of success of any endeavor. Today, I was seeing in my WhatsApp group of IIM, as I was discussing. So, one lady has just joined Cognizant as part of their HR team. And there were three others who said, Ki, wow, I've worked for that company and they look after you so, so well. You are in the right hands. So, this is what actually matters when it comes to a healthy environment at work. And this is where the brand name of a company comes in. If you look after your people well, even when they leave you, they still recommend you.
All right. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to talk to you about this pressing topic, COVID-19. All right. So COVID-19 has had huge and unprecedented impact on all our lives. Now, what is that one impact that you see or have observed significantly across all the organization with respect to their work environment?
One is everybody is languishing, for
Okay.
want of a better word, that people want to be productive, but sometimes they don't know. Each day, it's like they have come into a blob. They are in some kind of time warp, where they don't know what to do, what the next day holds. So while they want to perform their best, they are not able to do it because we people are social beings. Being cooped us makes us feel as though our essential freedom is being taken away. So by and large, what I am seeing is somewhere the fear of the unknown and fear of death has impacted performance. Now, I will share a story of two women that I spoke to
Okay.
the other day. Two ladies in their 70s. I have a mentor, this lady, she's a sprightly 70-year-old. She's been the head of department in one of the premier colleges in the city, and currently she's even done some workshops for the army regularly, and she's part of a de-addiction center and everything. So I called her up and I told her that I like to check on her every 2-3 months, and especially in the COVID times. So I asked her, ma'am, how are you? She said, Pragati, I'm always happy and I'm always good. You know, she said the other day my computer broke down, and she also helps some people with their master's level dissertation. She helps them kind of write their papers and everything. So she said, I
Okay.
suddenly realized that I couldn't call a technician in. So what is it that I did? She said, I started reading on my phone. My eyesight is a little weak, but I've learned a new skill. Now I can, read papers on the phone. And I realized this is the kind of people who thrive in spite of COVID. Viktor Frankl spoke about it in the book Man's Search for Meaning. So in COVID times, people at work, there is a segment of people who have upped their skills. They realize that they are languishing, something is not working out. So they have taken certain steps to look after their mental health. Perhaps they are doing meditation, they are doing spot jogging, maybe going outdoors and just looking at the sky, even if they don't have, let's say, a garden or a terrace to go to. So they have adapted very well. So in COVID, they've actually enhanced their emotional well-being, so their work performance actually has become better because they look at the bright side. Oh, I don't have to commute, there's lesser organizational politics to deal with, and I'm so free to work and navigate my work the way I want. So this is one side. This is the kind I feel that wherever there has been effective leadership, or certain companies, for where I've been holding corporate training sessions, but the company has taken care, to have a regular corporate trainer come in who talks to them about how they are feeling, how they are coping with grief. So such people, they actually are thriving a lot more in spite of COVID. People have realized that COVID is here to stay, and now I'm going to put my best foot forward. Like, look at yourself. Like, if you remember the month before the exam, what is it that each one of us did? Okay, no other distractions. I need to
Yeah.
focus because I need to give it my best. So one side, I'm seeing people at work who have got a lot more focus. Look, it's a very challenging time for me personally and even for the company, where a lot of economic slowdown is there and companies are also having a hard time. So I'm not going to let my company down. and I'll put my best foot forward.
Mhm.
Other side is a more significant proportion of people who are languishing, who are just not being able to perform. A lot of their fears have come to the forefront. They have gone through situations where they have lost a loved ones, or even if they have been quarantined, because of COVID and all that. So fear of their own humanity is scaring them. So I look at it, any problem, I look at it as an opportunity to grow and become a better version of ourselves. And that I think is applicable in the zone of work.
Okay. But Pragati, just to take it further, it's almost been 18 months now, and most of us are working remotely, work from home.
Absolutely.
Now, in such a scenario, how can a leader ensure or develop a healthy working environment virtually, that too, considering that most of us are absolutely virtually exhausted, correct? So how does the leader then develop this healthy working environment virtually?
One is by looking bright and perky. As
Okay.
I was sharing with Reshna and with you earlier on, I would not put such a bright red lipstick pre-COVID times. But I realized if I show up looking bright and if I smile a little bit more, it helps people to stay a little more focused. I look energetic even virtually. So what a leader can do is periodically, maybe once a week, once a month, dependent on which level of employees is he interacting with, be there and show positivity and radiate, you know enthusiasm. So when people see enthusiasm, when they hear enthusiasm, they also feel enthusiastic.
Absolutely. I think it's in fact infectious, because I think from the screen that I'm seeing right now, the only bright thing is the red color lipstick, and that really brightens up my day as well. So I think yeah, what you just mentioned, I think goes a long way in getting enthusiasm amongst people, the managers, the employees. I think that's a correct way. So yeah, being enthusiastic all the time. But don't you think that, if you're when times are so sad, I mean, things are a lot of people are grappling with issues, doesn't it seem very false when a leader is still, in midst of all this, still trying to be enthusiastic? Isn't it like putting up a sham? It's like a facade, which is like false. Doesn't it? Don't people just construe it that way? कि उसको तो कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, जब भी आओ देख तो हंसते रहता है, उसको तो पता ही है इतना सा प्रॉब्लम है. So what about that?
That's an interesting viewpoint.
Yeah.
However, I beg to differ. See, if you are only behaving in a particular way to play to a crowd, it's going to come across sooner or later. Because we human beings don't need to study psychology to sense authenticity. I know there are a lot of people in
Okay.
marketing who are going to disagree with me, and I totally love your viewpoint, and I'm not here to have a debate. I'm
Okay.
just sharing about how being authentic transfers on. This fourth wave of psychology, which talks about develop character strengths. Now, when we talk of character strengths, it's come down ancient wisdom, from the time of Roman generals, where they spoke about courage. If you're interested in philosophy, you will see that Stoicism, that was a term which had come when all these Roman philosophers spoke about how the going is there. Marcus Aurelius spoke about daily meditations. So if you look at it, we know them as world class generals, or we know them as emperors of a bygone era. But they also did things amidst so much of blood, gore, death, and famine, and droughts, and floods. They still had certain practices which took care of their mental strength. Now, what's happened is we have become very fragile. We expect that nothing ought to go wrong. Now, if we go back in history, whether it's the world wars, whether it was the Spanish flu, every epidemic gives us a chance to better ourselves, to let that greater me to come out. you know
Okay.
it's like, when you wrote an essay in class 1, it was 5 lines on mommy. Who is your favorite person in the world? Mommy eats this, mommy does this, mommy does that. But today you're so articulate. If you really have to talk about mother, I'm sure you would have a lot more dimensions to it. So how I look at it is, one way is, if you're faking it, I'm not so sure how effective it is. In my personal experience and people I see in therapy, I see the ones who fake it. are the ones who visit me the maximum, when they realize that, now my back is at the wall and I can't fake it anymore. Because, we do not thrive with a mask. We all are real, authentic people. Human beings, our core is very good and very authentic and genuine. And the more we put it aside now, more we have a lot of hassles in life. So, what I feel is coming back to the point, if you are stoic and if you practice genuine living, like if I have a bad day, what I do is I just take the day off. If I can cancel, if it's really bad, like I have the principle of halt: hungry, angry, late, tired, take a pause.
Okay.
you know
Interesting. Yeah.
so
Okay.
you halt. So I
Mhm.
feel that if you can do it, you're human at the end of the day. If you realize that today I'm just sad because of what I'm seeing on TV, or I've lost a loved one, or I just am fearful of for somebody in my life. I remember one of my corporate trainings was happening, and that time my dad had a little bit of ill health, and I
Mhm.
was very scared, those days with a mild fever, though he was not COVID positive. But he had this mild low grade fever which was not going away. His RT-PC test was coming negative. So I was very scared, and I was like, should I cancel? What if I goof up in the middle of the session, because these
Mhm.
tests are planned. And with COVID, especially with the elderly and with comorbidities, this has spelled like disaster. We all have the statistics.
Sure. Yeah.
So I realized that, see, I'm human. God forbid if at the time of my session or half an hour before something happens, I'll just cancel out. But till then, let me go and let me try. I have been doing this for the last 10 years. It's not going to impact me much. If at all I lose out on certain words, I can always apologize. So that kind of friendly attitude to your own humanity is what is going to help each one of us in these COVID times. Okay, if I am hungry or if I'm late or tired, sometimes because of online fatigue, if you have back-to-back sessions, sometimes I
Mhm.
cancel a session, or I say that maybe just shifted by half an hour. I'm extremely tired or I'm not up to it. So, that I think has helped me perform well. That is what helps people perform well. Okay, slow down. It doesn't matter. Right now, if you see, all of us have probably seen a more compassionate side to ourselves than ever before. Like, it's so nice, like when we read
Yeah.
about Sonu Sood, like nobody knew him, but when he heard of migrant laborers, he's one of the first actors or one of the first citizens who came out to help, and it became like a wave. So that
Correct.
compassionate side of ours first has to begin with our own selves.
Right. So I think what I understand is, and what you're trying to say is, it's more important to be an authentic leader than to be a perfect leader. So I think that is what my take from this is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. So let me talk about this now. You have pioneered an original concept called emotional ability resources, right? Tell us more about it. What's the significance of it from a leadership perspective?
Emotional ability resource is just, its tagline is have an issue, give ear to it. Ear means listen.
All right.
Because most of the time with us, what happens is we have an ostrich like approach to problems. And
Mhm.
especially if a leader has that, you see that time, that team is bickering with each other. Let me just not look into it. It's like survival of the fittest, whoever can. It doesn't work. If you see overall the team morale goes down, it invariably seeps into other teams, and it doesn't work at all. So here what happens is whenever there is an issue, you need to stop and listen. And after that, you need to see what is it that you need to do internally and what is it that you need to do externally to deal with the solution. Now, when you are a leader in an organization, what you need to do is first analyze at your management level with your top management, what is our organizational culture? How is it that we have teams relate to each other? Is it that we are pitting one person against the other? What is our overall vision? Like Walt Disney, he always said that we are in the business of happiness. So he always had a set of core values, because why he had it is when there is safety, there is happiness. So people knew that if, let's say, somebody is screaming and you are attending to a guest, and giving directions, so safety was a more core value. So the person knew that first I need to say excuse me and go and help out. Okay, what is this kind of a problem which is happening? So what leaders need to do is internally first introspect, what are their core values, what does the organization stand for? So when people know that, the whole organization is on a focused path. They know that which is the way forward. It's like a guiding light. A value is nothing but like a guiding light forward. It tells us where are we headed. Next, externally, they have to see which people need help. Is it at the team level, like at the middle management level? Or is it that, how is it that there are certain people who are struggling? Like other day when I was doing a program, the HR told me, is Pragati, I want you to begin with a session on grief. Because, as an HR consultant, whoever is having a death is coming to me. So I am listening, but I am so exhausted because I am not trained as a grief counselor and I'm not able to manage. While I have not personally experienced a death, I realize I can't listen to another person. Now, if the leadership was talking from an ER perspective, they would know that I immediately need to get a trained clinical psychologist or someone, you know, trained in grief counseling to help my HR, because otherwise my HR department is not equipped. While they can handle people, they are not going to be able to deal with the trauma of listening to so many grief stories. So with EAR, people know internally, externally, and at what levels, what initiatives need to come in. And there may be one person who probably is really suffering. Then, with EAR, the person knows ki, okay, this person needs a break for 1 hour. 1 hour, give him a break. This person needs a break for 1 week because this is he has lost a loved one, or this person needs counseling because anxiety or depression symptoms are coming in this person, and he's a valuable person of the and a part of the company. So we need to get an external agency to handle him. Sometimes what could be done is, we realize that exercise is not an option. Like I see, a dear friend of mine is a dancer. So at one of the accountancy firm, they have something called Zumba in the morning for all their employees. So, what happens is people don't even have to make that attempt to go out. So when companies do these kind of things, people look after their physical health, they are smiling with each other, and it's a more fun team building activity in such times.
That's a wonderful perspective, huh? EAR. When you have an issue, give it an EAR, right? Give it a year.
Yes, give
That's
ear to
wonderful.
it.
Give year to it. That's a wonderful, wonderful perspective. I think I'm going to kind of pick your brain more on this probably offline.
Definitely.
So now coming to this, now we all know charity begins at home, right? So how can one take care of their own well-being on daily basis? Because that definitely influences the emotional well-being of the organization where he or she is working. And I have noticed many individuals resorting in these times to binge eating, binge watching. So is that okay?
Right now, what I would say, I'm not okay, and that's okay. That's the kindest thing that you can do to yourself. What is the void that I'm feeling that's making me binge eat? Where is it that I want to forget about what's happening? I'll share a personal experience here. There were a series of grief counselings that I did, and I realized I was feeling sad. Much as we say transference doesn't have to come in, and of course it doesn't, but how is it that I will pour from an empty cup? So if I am feeling sad, if I have heard certain stories of people who've shared with me, so what I do, I'll tell you what my go-to thing is: binge watch Netflix. So other day, and I love classics. So I was watching Vasai the other day, and just seeing that grandeur, larger than life, it just made me feel happy, and it made me I don't know, feel more secure, as though the world is, decadent, and this too shall pass. So here, what one needs to do is see that why is it that I do comfort eating? I'm binge eating because, if you see, eating is very closely linked to our survival. Here, when my survival is being threatened and that of my loved ones is being threatened, I would rather eat, because that ensures that I survive. So it's really linked to primal biology.
Right,
So,
right.
we have to appreciate that wisdom. Now if I realize that because of that binge eating I'm putting on weight, so what is required, I coming back to what you're saying, is we need to communicate better with ourselves, and that's where emotional ability, resources, and emotional well-being come in. One day if I do it, it's okay, you can do it with kindness, but let's say if somebody is doing for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, it's not going to work. So what we need to do is, emotional well-being has to be a part of our life, like daily brushing and daily bathing. Only then we'll be able to deal with challenging situations. Because right now, what's happening is people suddenly realize that I'm stressed out, I don't know what to do. But here it is, okay, you are stressed out. Now, see, we've seen Calcutta is so humid. If you and I go and stand outside at 11 in the morning, are we or are we not going to sweat? We will.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Because so that's the same thing. Stress is natural. For any kind of difficulty, stress is a natural response, but stress disorder is not natural. When your work suffers, when your relationship suffers, or you personally suffer, that's when you realize this stress is not working for me. So when I realize that stress can be eustress, something that motivates me. If you see world-class athletes, they are so focused, It's literally like, a panther or something. I was watching Usain Bolt run the other day. It's like that focus you see, it's there in every muscle of his body. So that stress works like you stress for him, because that focus comes in. So here what happens with the lens of emotional well-being, I need to be comfortable with all my emotions. So I recommend a daily practice of journaling, which is something which most of us have stopped doing. Here you and I will talk to each other or maybe randomly and have inane conversation, but we very rarely know what's going on in our minds.
Of course. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
So again, coming to a very basic example, when you go to shower, do you close your eyes and shower?
No.
Obviously, we don't, because you want to see, do I have a smattering of dirt here? If is there something on my nose? We want to check and then we want to shower accordingly. But if you
Right.
see, when it comes to our mental health, we think कि अपने आप stress गायब हो जाएगा, अपने आप anxiety नहीं होगी, कैसे नहीं होगी? But here it is like I have to first write it down. So I know what is my concern for today. Ki what went well today? What did not go well today? What can I do about it? What is it that I need to let go? So if I do it on a daily basis with journaling, I am very much clued into my emotions. So then I'm able to decide how I want to feel. If I realize, okay, I shared the example of watching something on Netflix. If I realize that I'm drained out, so I realize, okay, I need to go into a happier space. On a normal day, maybe I may have gone out for a coffee with a friend. I may have shared a laugh. Right now, that's not possible. So I realize the next best thing is to sit down and watch TV, and it'll make me feel better. Because I love historical. So each one of us has to know what works for us to go into that positive affect. So that's not fake. That's a bit like, wiping off the smudge from your nose. If you smudged it, you can always wipe it off. But if you
True.
pretend that no, it's not there, you will never dust off the cobwebs from our mind. Now, in COVID, what's happened is most of us have not dusted the cobwebs inside our mind for years and years and years. Whenever there has been a challenge, we've just distracted ourselves. Oh, go to the mall, pick up something, just go out, and forget about it. It will go away. How will it go away? You need to clean it on a daily basis. So, daily journaling is going to give you an avenue to practice emotional well being, not as rocket science, but something as basic as brushing your teeth. Second is breath management. There are a lot of good books on it, and just the practice of watching our breath, and deep breathing to whatever guided visualization we like, or just practicing the pause every hour, 10 deep breaths like this just anchors us into ourselves, and when our breathing slows down, we feel well, we feel a lot calmer. So these are two emotional ability resources which I see work for all of us, irrespective of age, irrespective of challenges that we are going through.
Wow. I think listening to you already is making me feel better. I don't know how it's making me feel better. And I
Thank you
love
so
this,
much.
about when you said that it's okay to not feel okay. I think that's so huge. I mean, that's really deep. It's okay not to be feel okay. Lovely. Okay, now I'm going to ask you something which is a little different. It's a little different. I'm going to segue into another topic, and it's about women in workplace. So talking about women in workplace, they often feel deprived or are not able to be or are not confident enough to kind of negotiate for a better pay package. Just as an example, I'm giving you for the fear of being judged or being money minded. Now, in that case, how does a leader tackle this so that every gender feels safe and feels safe and secure to kind of voice their opinion?
That's a very interesting question. One is by acknowledging that yes, women are bad negotiators, and if there are women in his team, they may not negotiate as well as their male counterparts. Now, whether you look at the acting industry, whether you look at engineers, whether you look at software engineers, there is usually a pay disparity. And what a leader can do is first acknowledge it. Remember, you and I were talking about patriarchy earlier on. you
Right.
know. So what
Right.
happens is, one is we say, oh, there's no patriarchy. We are living in Calcutta. It's an urban city, and patriarchy happens in the villages. But today, you and I know that is that
Sure.
true? It
Okay.
happens everywhere. So when you know what is there, you can manage it well. Today, I realized that because of patriarchy or a patriarchal way of being, I was free to pursue my dreams without really thinking about the monetary returns which come to my work. I need not have monetized my work. Where
True.
most people, where a 30-year-old or a 28-year-old would have first look at salary, my love for learning is something I could engage in because it didn't matter. My kitchen ran primarily on my husband's earnings. So
True.
that's making patriarchy work for you. Now, I could have fought with him, I could have fought with the system and said, this is not what works. So, there are certain good points of everything. Now, as a leader, if you realize that women don't negotiate that well, it's a chance to call the women in your organization and ask them, okay, do you feel that you are sidelined in some way? Do you feel you're overlooked? One, what's going to happen is women normally are better multitaskers and they are usually more loyal. Women per
Yeah, I
se don't
agree.
like
Yeah.
to change organizations. The attrition rate is much lower. So, that frank conversation will help build a bridge. So even if they are not negotiating that well, even if the company policy is where they are okay with it, because at the end of the day, company saves money, on a woman's salary, there is transparency. So with transparency, the gender divide, which is not visible in specific spaces like negotiation, can easily be bridged. So women, in spite of challenges in how they view themselves, because women traditionally feel that I'm a nice girl. Nobody should
Okay.
think that.
Okay.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Of course. Of course. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the leader needs to have effective conversations. Okay, look, do you feel that you don't put your best foot forward? You are a valuable asset to the company. Are there any thoughts on that? Do you feel that? Because a lot of people, and especially in my I am women leadership class, a lot of women say that we know that we are not getting as good a pay, but we never speak up. So, I wish someone from the HR or, someone from the management really stopped to ask us. So I think if a leader just says that, even if he says that his hands are tied, he'll have women eating out of his or her hands.
I think that's a brilliant tip that you've just shared. I think, yeah, I'm just going to be asking a couple of my HR friends that do you kind of ask these questions at all? But thank you so much for sharing these tips. Okay, Pragati, I can be asking you a couple of questions more, but I guess we have some questions from our viewers. And so we bring, because as a part of our session, we end with question and answers from our audience. So I'm going to ask you certain questions which just come in. Yeah, the first question is you mentioned what they are actually doing is important than just data for companies. How does one find that out? Mostly it's a link you end up filling and data is collected. So that's a question.
Thank you for asking that question because the only way is humanizing the entire process. Right
Okay.
now, I'm working on a project which is about organic farming and emotional well being. So, my take is the food that we eat, does it impact our emotional well being? As you all can see, I'm very passionate about it. So, one of the things that I do is I'm not a farmer, I don't know much about marketing, but I do know human beings and their stories. So, we are collecting a series of stories, personal stories. So, along with data, the only way to humanize the process is one-to-one conversations. So companies, when they are collecting data about something, I recommend to have some caselets where, it gives them that real life benchmark to see whether the data is just, somebody just ticking or crossing out based on what is being asked, or where people are actually emoting and telling them what is happening. So the only way is to humanize that and do some case studies.
I think it answers pretty well the question. Moving on to the second one. This says India remains a low middle income country, and mental health care here has been a second class citizen. More so during the pandemic. The ongoing crisis, together with the economic slump, has had detrimental effects on the psychological health of several individuals. Is India unprepared for the mental health crisis this pandemic has brought along? What can companies do to address this for their blue collar employees who are often overlooked and may have borne the brunt of the crisis?
I think that's a very pertinent question. One is, yes, we don't have any initiatives, we don't have any, healthcare which supports mental health. Therapy is still considered a lot more expensive and time consuming. So, what needs to be done? If you see, in certain parts of the country, already initiatives are being done. I'm part of this Equitable Health Access Consortium where a lot of hospitals, a lot of education, and a lot of NGOs are trying to uplift the lowest levels of society by teaching them about vocation, by giving basic health care, and also understanding that education forms an integral part. Where I come in with them is, that with any health initiative, there has to be a mental health initiative. See, like today, you and I are talking about it. Today, you are a forum where you talk about learning outdoor wilderness. So, the only way forward is whether it's blue collar, whether it's white collar, whether it's the top tier CEOs or the higher echelons of the management, mental health has to be there at every level. For the blue collar, there have to be people who can speak in their vernacular language, the language that they are most comfortable with, and deal with it. I will share one story of a very learned counselor. He's based in Vellore, and when the tsunami hit down south in Madras, so the government had put up all these relief camps, and there was food which was going in, and everybody was helping out. He said, when I went there were these fishermen who were there, and he said these guys have a lot of respect. So when I went, I was told that these guys actually, are not very receptive to counseling, and doctor, please be mindful of it. They'll refuse. He says, no problem. Let me give it a try. He had gone with about 100 of his counselors. He said, when I reached, I knocked on the hut, the makeshift hut. The guy said, please come in. You are the first person who's given us the respect of asking our permission to come in. What is it that you want us to tell you? So
Wow.
that basic respect, that unconditional positive regard, I have done a lot of sessions with the blue collar, and I've seen just empathy if we give them, or just that basic respect when we give them now, they are willing to work at their problems. We were discussing about this government hospital where I work, and I still remember. So here, ESI is essentially where the fourth level wage earners, their family members come. I remember one lady had come with chronic knee pain issues, and she was recommended to me by the orthopedic because it was not going away. So I asked her कि आप कैसे हैं? She said सब कुछ दिया हुआ है भगवान का. छोटे से जगह रहते, 4 लड़कियां शादी कर ली, 3,000 रुपया कमाते हैं, सब कुछ हो जाता है, बस नमाज नहीं पढ़ पाते हैं, हमको यही दिक्कत है. And I learnt my lesson in humility that day. कि here we talk of, what figures, and here this woman has it down pat on what is required to be
Wow.
happy.
That was so profound. I mean, seriously, thank you for sharing this.
Yes.
And somewhere even it, somewhere it rings bell in my head also. Probably, yeah. All right. Moving on to the next question. India is ranked 139 out of 149 countries in the latest happiness index. In various reports, people around the country have reported being anxious and fearful of losing their loved ones to COVID-19. Why aren't we a happy lot? Basic thing. Why aren't we a happy lot? What's stopping us from being happy?
Because we are aping the West. We are a country with very rich psycho-spiritual tradition. We thrive in unity with in diversity. But if you see now, we are busy dividing ourselves. The rich versus the poor, the interests you have in music, and we have stopped internalizing anything. We are just externalizing ourselves. Foreign vacations, expensive education. We have stopped being satisfied with what is available in the neighborhood. So I'm so glad, like when you talked of my journey of rural Orissa, Bihar, and here, where I did my MA in Masters from IGNU, from my neighborhood college, because I said, with all my fancy degrees, I really want to know how is it that a person who does not have much of exposure to academics, how does this person thrive with 6,000 rupee tuition? That's the cost of an IGNU
Hmm.
master's program, 6,500 rupees.
Is
And
it?
has been, that's it. And
Okay.
that's inclusive of the study material, by the way, for the year.
That's a masterclass for me now.
Yes, yes. So I realized that, why is it that that is bad, and why is it that a premier institute is the only one which can teach me knowledge? So we Indians are not happy because, we are chasing red herrings. We are never happy with the birds in hand. And we have stopped growing spiritually. We have just pushed it aside. We use it as absolutely like a trade off. God, I'm very sad, so I'm going to reach out to you. Meditation, this is a relaxing week, so I'll meditate a little bit, otherwise, I'm too busy. So, what is spirituality? It's the nature of my relationship with the most important person, which can only be my own self. Most of us are not comfortable in our own skin. We are either, trying to shed weight. I should be 300 grams lighter. I was actually at a party and I've
Yeah.
had a friend say that to me, I think I put
Okay.
on 300 grams, and I was like, really, there are people dying of hunger. And
Oh my God. Okay.
so we need to get into a culture of gratitude, which has gone away. Second thing is we've stopped doing charity, Alifia. If you see earlier on, people did a lot of charity. The Christians are still saved in a way because their church-based education makes them give regular charity. Even the Sikhs have it कि लंगर में जाके आप सेवा करिए. And some I won't go into every religion like that. All I would say is where people can do hands-on charity, you feel abundance. Like for me, what I do is these days I try and give something with my own hands to somebody, that
Okay.
brings in a spirit of abundance. There are these old ladies who sit by near the lake. So I like to give them something. And
Mhm.
that charity, spirituality, and appreciating what I have in life, if we start doing that, Alifia, we will be the happiest nation.
I think this is like actually the grassroots level. That's a basic tenets of how you should be living. So if you just follow these basic tenets, I think we will become a happy country and a happy lot. Wonderful. So I'm going to ask you this last questions, though there are a couple of more, but time is pressing. But I'm going to ask you this one question, which even is a question that even I would like to ask you. When does a person go to a psychologist, and when should one visit a psychiatrist? Yeah.
Good question. So, a psychologist essentially, usually I'll tell you, different countries have different practices. Like
Right.
in some countries, you first go to a psychologist when you feel that, you are not being able to perform your best. You are having some sleep issues or some burning repetitive thought, which is not looping thought, which you're not able to handle, or some pressing issue that you don't have. So a psychologist then diagnoses whether you need a psychiatrist. Psychiatrists usually are required when there is need of some hormonal imbalance that is there, like diabetes. So if you see, if there is an insulin imbalance, you go to an endocrinologist or a
Correct.
diabetologist. So
Correct.
in the same way, when serotonin or any neurotransmitter, if there is some kind of imbalance, or if minerals like lithium or something are not there, that actually cause delusions, or they cause hallucinations or anxiety. That's when psychiatrists come in. And here what happens is, because medication then takes care of those ups and downs in your body, and
Hmm.
Psychologists basically give you the talk therapy, where just by giving you a safe space to vent, the
Got
thoughts in
it.
your mind, which are entangled together,
Got
they
it.
get
Yeah.
more systematic and they get outlined.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for educating us on that. All right, Pragati. So now we come to the third and the last section of our chat. It's called the Little Discoveries. Okay, it's called the Little Discoveries round, where we get to discover Pragati, the person, through a rapid fire of 10 questions. I would love to make it 11 or 12 or 13, but just a 10 questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so you need to give a one word answer or a one sentence answer, but pass or do not know is not acceptable. All right. So
Okay.
here we go. All right. If you weren't working in the space of emotional well-being, what would you probably be doing now?
Farming.
Seriously?
Yeah, I grew up. My mother had a farm, and my earliest memories are, and there were a lot of these cows which were there, and these haystack used to come. So some of my favorite memories are, and she was very open with us, when we would go there. It was a 25-acre farm, and she'd like go roam around, climb the trees. So we used to climb these haystacks and jump around in them. And after that, of course, like you would be scratchy and itchy, and then have a shower. There used to be a pond there, should like go there, swim. And because it was a private area, I think I love the land, I'd probably get down to, and now with my research with organic farming and emotional well-being, that love of the land, what they say now.
Yeah, mati, manush.
Exactly.
All right. Okay, so let's go to the second one. What's the best career advice you have received, and how about the worst?
The best what I got is that always you need to love what you do, otherwise you never succeed.
Okay.
So
And
follow your passion.
So what about the worst?
Worst is follow theory completely. That we are all
okay.
prisoners. Whatever you do, there has to be theory. Especially in my work with human beings, I realize we are unique creations of God. Whether I read thousands of books, you can see some of them behind me. Every human being knows his problem the best. I may do my doctorate, I may do postdoctorate, but today, if you have a problem, you know it better than me. So, human beings we can't typecast, that is.
Right. Thank you. Okay, next one. Do you have any hidden talent or surprising hobbies?
Yep. Swimming.
Yeah. That's a hidden talent, or is it a surprising hobby?
It's a hidden talent, Again, when I went back, I remember as a child, when I was in class 11th or 12th, I used to swim locally, in the local club. So I probably would have liked to pursue it further.
All right, sure. Okay, so what is this lesson that you have learned from your biggest failure?
Okay. There is time and place for everything.
Okay.
Like, I remember my biggest failure was my first counseling case that I can think of. Here, I had done my diploma, and I go and sit down with this girl, and I started asking her, I know you said one line answer, so should I give you the anecdote or?
Yes, please go ahead. I'd love to hear that. Okay.
So, we are taught that when somebody comes, you sit with your pen and pad and you nod your head and you write down on the side. And here I was very excited. Huh? And this girl came in and I asked her name. Then I asked her age. Then I was like, which company do you work for? She said, Maersk. And for a minute I said, excuse me? She said, Maersk. So that time I didn't know it was a logistics company. So maybe I thought for a minute. She said, excuse me, can you get me a more experienced counselor? I don't think I want to talk to you. So that's where I learned that, when I went back and I learned that we don't know everything and the other person sometimes knows, but don't be unsure. If you are unsure, just leave that space blank. You can always go back and revisit it. So that failure taught me it's okay. You never know anything, but that's not the point where you become unsure of yourself.
All right. Lovely. Okay, so what advice would you give to parents who feel that the kids are getting badly addicted to the screen or technology? That is it okay or enough is enough?
My parents, I apologize. I mean no offense. I too have my children and I walk that journey on a regular basis. You have to role model the behavior that you want. Now, you can't tell a child that, look, I have a work assignment, so I need to work on your laptop. You're only watching TV. Now, you feel that right now the pressing need is, maybe earning finances, meeting your deadlines. Your child feels, hey, I need to relax my mind and TV is the best way. So I'm not saying.
Of course, I get the drift. Yeah, of course. But I think that's the case which is happening everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think I need to kind of go back now and remind myself that when I say something to my nephew, I need to check myself first that मैंने भी तो screen पे addiction नहीं किया है कि नहीं. Okay, this is a lovely question. The next one is, if you had the world's attention for 30 seconds, what would you say?
Have an issue, give ear to it.
Oh, wonderful. Bingo. All right. Your guru, role model, mentor, somebody who you really look up to. Who would that be?
For me, it's Devleena Ghosh, who's the founder of Cornash, and
Right.
also how a 100-bed COVID hospital, that's something that she has taken up now, raising funds and giving back to charity. Like, you were asking me. Now, we are all psychologists and mental health profession, but when we realize that people are dying and, there are no hospitals, so actually sit down and identify how you can give back to society. I have seen that lady walk that journey every step, every single day. And I have got inspired in the concept of servant leadership. So that is my
Right.
personal role model. And from the world of work, it's definitely Sudha Murthy,
All right. Sure. Okay. All right. Spontaneity or stability? Your pick.
Spontaneity, any day.
Yeah. All right. If you could be in any movie, what would it be, and what character would you play?
That's an interesting one, actually. And other day I was watching this, maybe Victoria. I was watching Victoria and Albert, and I saw this young girl from the age of 17 or
Uh-huh.
18, when she takes over as the queen. And every challenge which comes, you grow with the role. So definitely, whatever role is given to you, how you prepare yourself for that task and accept it with grace.
All right. Maybe I will watch that movie that you're recommending because I've not seen it.
Yes.
But definitely, I will. Okay, so I'm going to ask you, of course, a travel question. All right. Okay.
Alifiya.
Of course. Okay. The first place on the bucket list that you would want to travel when things open up.
I would love to go to Canada.
Canada.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Any particular reason why?
It's very beautiful. And also, my son is in Boston currently. I haven't seen him for 7, 8 months now. So,
Right.
I would love to visit Toronto and then definitely meet him
course.
too.
Sure. I think that's a very plausible answer. All right. So, and with that, we come to the end of our talk for today. It was an absolute delight, Pragati, listening to you. And thank you so much for gracing our chat show. We wish you good health and hope to see you extremely and very soon.
Thank you so much. It was really nice coming here and I've really enjoyed the chat. I think the hour has flown by, Alifiya. I've really had a good time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. We were talking to Pragati Sureka, author, evangelist, academist, and a clinical psychologist. Thank you for watching today's session brought to you by OWL. Stay tuned for more such meaningful sessions from Outdoor Wilderness and Learning. Until the next episode, stay healthy, stay safe. This is your OWL host, Alifiya Calcuttawala, wishing you goodbye.